I'm calling to order the Invasive Remediation Working Group meeting of the Darien Parks and Recreation Commission, regular meeting Thursday, May 19th, 4 p.m. Thank you very much for attending, everybody. I guess we're gonna move the approval of the minutes to the end and start with item number 3. Discuss the trees of heaven tagged by our turf maintainer, Mike, staff. Oh, and staff and removal update. Sorry about that.
Hi, Mike.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Mike.
So we thought maybe you would just take us through, Mike, your process of locating the trees of heaven, and we just want to get your feedback as well as Sandy's feedback about the removal process and about how many that you found in each park. I did send the photos that you sent me to the commission. I don't think I sent it to this group. Not certain about that. But anyhow, if you could take us through what you've been doing.
Okay, so I have walked through each one of our parks looking for the tree of heaven. I identified them by the structure of their bark, their overall size, the leftover seeds that were attached to them, leaf shape, canopy shape. I have tagged 35 trees of heaven in all of our parks. If you refer to the pictures that I did send out, there are some lines that are drawn on them. Those were areas that had multiple small saplings in them. And then there are also some small saplings located underneath some of the trees that are marked. A couple other things that I was not sure about was there are some trees of heaven that are located very close to the property line of some of our parks, so I'm not 100% sure if they're on our property or on neighboring private property. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I was pretty thorough in finding them. It took a little while to give 100% on the identification because it's springtime. They didn't have their leaves out yet. They were just, they were budding. But once the leaves popped out, I saw the smooth edge on the leaves, and it was a confirmation that, yes, they are in fact trees of heaven.
Mike, can you tell us where you found the most of them, out of curiosity? Like which park was really the frequent flyer or whatever?
The majority of them are located at Weed Beach. There was a very large grove of them located next to the unpaved parking lot and located next to the fence that goes down towards the sailing area, as we call it, where they have the paddle boards, and then they have the little small sunfish sailboats for the kids. That was the area that had most of them. And then there's a couple of others that are located throughout the park. Some are located in the picnic area. There's one up on the hill, pretty much when you come in on the right-hand side.
Thank you. The other, I guess the follow-up is Pam says that you've had some experience with them. Could you talk a little bit about how you would go about, if when time permits, if the staff could remove them and deal with them, or any strategies for dealing with them?
Yeah, I mean, most of these trees, and this is Sandy talking now, by the way, most of these trees, we do have the ability to take them down ourselves, either just felling them from the ground or, using the town bucket truck. As far as, once they're taken down and shipped and removed, the stumps that are left behind, that's kind of still a question mark because there's a few things that can be done. The first is to leave the stump as it is, and then you just have to continually keep checking on it, over a period of weeks and months because shoots will start to grow again and you have to lop them off again. You can dig them out with a machine, a backhoe, which unfortunately we don't own one. We'd have to borrow one, or we'd have to enlist the Public Works Department to come dig them out. And even doing that, you have to make sure you remove every piece of root because it's still after the stump is dug out, there still may be some saplings that, sprout out of the ground. The third option is to use glyphosate, which is essentially Roundup, and as a paintbrush almost paint the top of the stump where you make the cut, and let the pesticides do its work and kill it. But those are, I'm assuming, probably one of the first two options is going to be probably the most preferred choice. But those are the three options that we see. I mean, and obviously the thing to know, it's like we, Mike knows a lot about these trees and everything, but we are not experts. I mean, you can obviously consult other professional resources, and they may come up with a different strategy, but as far as what our department can do, that would those would be the kind of the options that we would take if we were to to go ahead and move forward with this on our own.
Mike, I missed the second one. I'm just taking notes. This is Patty Baumgartner. I got the stumps and I've got the however you call it, glide aid that would go on the stumps. What was your one in between?
So it was to dig out the stumps with a backhoe, to physically remove them, and then the third one was it's glyphosate, which is basically
First one was to cut them off. To cut them
I'm
off.
missing one. Pardon me?
Cut them off, Patty.
And just flat out cut them off.
Cut it,
Okay.
then leave it, and then kind of keep up with the just.
Oh,
kill it.
maintain it. Maintain
Yes.
it. Okay, got it. Right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
The follow-up to first would be to take the stumps out if permitted, whatever it allows. And the third, the glyphosate was the
Yeah,
last
I got it.
thing.
All right. Thanks. Thank you.
That's great. I mean, sounds like those are great options. Is there anybody on the committee that has experience working with Tree of Heaven and has other suggestions other than what Sandy has just mentioned?
I don't think there is another option for removing
Chris,
trees.
you've had experience with
Yeah,
that.
we've had quite a lot of them. We've just done the second option, I think it was, which is the first option, to cut them off and then just watch them. But we are there, and you've got to be there to do it. We've got.
They spread by seed. Chris, do you know how, or is it roots? Do you happen to know how maybe Laura or Joanne knows how they spread? Is it flowering and then a seed pod? Do we know?
Well, these gentlemen will know, but it seems to me that they have multiple exits out of the ground. So you cut one and another one comes up next to it. So it's all rhizome related, but let's check with our experts there. What do they say?
If I may add in here, the Tree of Heaven does send out suckers out of its roots, shoots from the ground. But the main way they do spread is a seed that the tree produces. This seed is very similar to the seeds that you may see on our native maple trees. The pinwheels, they spread through the wind. The other thing that does spread them, the birds. Birds do eat the seeds, and they bring them wherever they fly to, and they release them after they digest them.
Okay.
This is the tree that was in the book. A tree grows in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
It comes out of a drain. That's how robust they are.
Okay. Well, it sounds like the staff have, they've started the identification and they have an idea about how to proceed, Pam. So it sounds like it's just when they have time to address it. It doesn't sound like the committee needs to allocate resources other than to say, hey, we want this done, right? Is that what I'm understanding, Pam?
Yes, but Mike and Sandy too, I had talked with Sandy this morning about, realistic goals, in terms of, and I also want to ask both of them, at one point you had stressed that it depends on where the trees are and if you can even get to them with the resources that we have. Are most of the trees accessible for you guys to be able to cut them down?
I would say most of them are, yes, accessible. part of the one major issue that I see, there's a few that were tagged in Baker Park, kind of behind the brand new backstop, and that ground is extremely soft, even during the driest portions of the year. So I think the only best time we'd be able to attempt that those trees would be in the winter. But as far as I know, right now, that would be the one place that maybe we might have to, hire a professional to climb them and take them down piece by piece, because they're very tall and they're obviously near a private residence fence and our brand new backstop, which we absolutely don't, damage. But most of them are, in the wood line, a lot of them on the beach, so those ones are easy. But I think it's probably, about 90% of them we can do on our own.
There are four of them, as I understand, at Cherry Lawn, and one of them is really fairly large. Is there a way we could target the ones at Cherry Lawn first?
Yeah, if Cherry Lawn is where you'd like to start, we could target those first. The only thing is that for us, the time of the year that we would look to even start to attempt this would either be, late summer or in the fall heading into the winter season. It's not something that we could just pick up and do right now.
And the problem is that the striped lantern bug is going to inhabit the tree and then feed off of the maples and everything else over at Cherry Lawn and other parks as well. So, I mean, ideally, it would be nice to get rid of them sooner rather than later.
Yeah, but they Mary Louise, that's not really part of their duties right now. Their duties right now are so busy. So we went into this knowing that they could not do anything currently, but the earliest they possibly could do something is maybe late July or into August. Am I correct in saying that, Sandy?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. So the earliest could be July. And quite honestly, we're not that far away from that.
Sure, that's true.
Okay.
And I also want to read what Joanne put in the chat, was that from Penn State Extension, established trees continually spread by sending up root suckers that may emerge as far as 50 feet from the parent tree. A cut or injured tree of heaven may send up dozens of stump and root sprouts. Sprouts young as 2 years are capable of producing seed. Tree of heaven produces allopathic chemicals in its leaves, roots, and bark that can limit or prevent the establishment of other plants. Thank you, Joanne. I know you're trying to get that out, so it was good you put it in the chat.
Yeah. So, Joanne, do you think the strategy about cutting them is not a good strategy, or will it at any point weaken them if you keep on cutting them back? That's the question, because I know with some of the weed strategies, they do that. They just keep on cutting it back until it exhausts the roots, the energy that's stored in the roots, right?
I think you could possibly do that, but it all depends. I think you have to be diligent, like Chris says. You have to keep on going back and checking to see what's happening. But I just wanted to put that out there just so that you knew that they're actually, the root suckers are able of producing seeds, and the tree of heaven produces up to 200,000 seeds each tree. No, it's crazy. So, and I'm not sure how, and maybe Laura can speak better for this, how prevalent the spotted lanternfly is yet in Connecticut. I know it's a problem in Pennsylvania, but I'm not sure about Connecticut.
Yeah, it's been spotted in Connecticut. It is not an issue right now, as far as I know, but that's why we want to get ahead of this. Having this plan and 2 months from now, starting to tackle it, can you imagine we're actually going to be ahead of, an invasive insect? So that's fabulous.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds fair.
And Mike and Sandy, have you witnessed this bug at all? And they're in the parks every single day, so.
I haven't witnessed it. Yeah. When I was identifying all the trees of heaven, I was actually looking for the spotted lanternfly and its egg masses, and I did find none.
Okay.
Great.
That's a link to what it looks like. Sorry, that looks ridiculous.
Okay, don't worry about it. Well, it sounds like we're kind of where we have to be in terms of the limited staffing and the limited funding that we have. So I think we need to move to the other piece of the project, which is the ABFP. So can we just, if you don't mind, if we can ask Pam, Sandy, and Mike to, when they have time to address that, because it's the nice thing about the Tree of Heaven is that it's really, they can spot it, they can address it, sounds like, to a degree. So that's one thing that we can kind of get ahead of, like Laura said. So let's get them started on that. I don't think we can add any more to, because we're not going to do the chemical intervention at this point, because that's not what the commission wants. So I think we should move to the next agenda item, if it's okay, in the interest of time. I'm sorry, I'm trying to move these meetings. Oh, do you have something, Pam? Go ahead.
Sure. No, I just wanted to thank Sandy and Mike for coming. I think at this point they're able to go and leave, and certainly we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for picking up the stuff at Tilly for us too, from the scout event that we did with beautification. That
Okay.
Amy Smiley did. We really appreciated that, by the way. I'm sorry.
No problem. Anytime.
Yeah, thanks again.
Thanks.
Anyway, on to agenda item 4, mapping of invasive update and scheduling a specific invasive removal. Before we start that, I just wanted to go over some of the stuff that we talked about at the Parks and Rec meeting last night. Is that okay? And I think they want to thank everybody on this committee for your hard work. I mean, it's definitely a huge job and you have a very limited budget. So I think that was pretty much acknowledged that you guys are taking a huge task for the town. One of the concerns, I guess, we did get from some of the members and maybe the RTM was that they wanted to make sure that we have, I guess, an expert, like a horticulturist involved. I don't, obviously I just joined this committee, so I'm getting to know who's on the committee, but that was one of the things they really want to make sure that we're kind of prioritizing the work that's being done, based upon, like we talked about flowering, seeding, how that type of thing goes. But I think they also realize that the budget is so limited that, like you just talked about the Tree of Heaven, it's spread out all over our parks. So that's, hard. You can't say, we're just going to go after garlic mustard. I'm just making that one up because that's flowering now. It's going to seed. So I guess that's one of their concerns, is to make sure that this committee has a plan with the monies and to realize that there's a future, that once we show some success, that we can hopefully go back to the town and say, hey, this is what it looks like. This is what we can accomplish with this small amount of money. But, it is a big job. And
Susan, we are very fortunate in having both two master gardeners working with us,
Right.
Laura and Joanne.
Right.
And they have put in mucho hours to get that designation, which is not easy to get. So I think we
Right.
fit the bill on that.
That's what I said. We mentioned that too. I just wanted to tell you what was said, Mary.
Okay.
Right. So,
Okay.
Susan,
But that was the comment they had, but it wasn't that the people on the committee weren't qualified, but they just wanted to make sure that those people were on the committee. There's a difference, and
and this was the
there
Parks
and
and Rec Commission asking this?
yeah, no, they just wanted to be sure, because we didn't have, the only people at the meeting were Amy wasn't at the meeting and Mary Louise wasn't at the meeting. So,
Yes.
they weren't there to kind of give your bona fides to the commission. So
Correct.
so I wanted you to be aware that that was commented on. But that, we did talk about how we do have you, Joanne, we talked about Juliet doing some of the native planting. So, but someone said, don't we have someone that's a specific weed horticulturalist? And I was like, well, I think we're covered. But I just want you to know that was commented.
I don't think they obviously understand what's involved in getting the appellation of, quote, master gardener.
Oh yeah, no, okay,
you know.
yeah, I got it. No, I understand. I mean, I believe in the expertise that's in this committee right now. I'm just saying this was said, and I just want to make sure that going forward, if the reports go back, I think it's helpful for the committee to see, like what, the type of product that's coming out. And we didn't have minutes. We had no report that was going to, because it was a very small meeting. We barely made a quorum because we were missing a couple of people. So just as product, I'm saying, to just make sure that this meeting and this group has a focused product that we can then show the commission, and then the commission can then maybe bring up to the powers that be in terms of getting more funding in the future. That's what I'm trying to say. But anyway, that's all I wanted to start with and let you know where, since that was last night and fresh in my memory. Let's talk, I guess, go back into this mapping of the invasive. I had a chance to look at the minutes from Patty. Thank you very much for doing that. It's very helpful. It sounds like you guys have mapped great locations, and it says that there's a vendor willing to do parts of it, almost one fully and the other piece half, right? It sounds like. How do you guys feel about it? I mean, is it the direction
That was
that?
based on cost. I mean, he's willing to do it all. It was just, we had $8,000. So what could you do? And, Mary Louise can talk to this and Pam and everybody else, but the priority started with, let's do it down by the pond on the left-hand side. So that was that one really big visible area. Then it goes around kind of behind the grounds, and then half of that, so that he could do that and half of that. And then we work our way into B, which is on like the kind of behind the playground, behind the basketball court. Yes, behind the basketball court and the playgrounds. And then the C area was behind the gardens. And Mary Louise and I and Laura and everybody had talked about how we felt confident that we could marshal, there's very dedicated people that spend time at Cherry Lawn, from the dog people to the playground people to the to pickleball people, that they would help. But I said, I need somebody to tag what stays and what goes, or what goes and what stays. And then Chris Filmer was wonderful, because he laid in on the battle, right, with the general and Patton. And it's important to have a battle plan and really map everything out first. So we understood garlic mustard seeds at this time, this one seeds at that time. Laura Mosher talked at length about the importance of laying down, was it tarp or black, whatever you call it, cardboard, and, to help suffocate. And so Susan, we've walked this 3+ times now, and it's this is an excellent, strong group. The best news we've heard is that Parks and Rec can do the Tree of Heaven. We can kind of go back to focusing the trees of heaven. We can focus on this area. That's my 2 cents.
I meant to say during the meeting, Lori Bora also mentioned that, Laura, that you had mentioned doing a group of people, educating a group of, like an army of volunteers, like educating them and, like going through a certification process where they know how to do which weeds should be removed. And I guess there was an article you had forwarded to her.
Right. I saw that the city of Baltimore, that's what they were doing. I wasn't suggesting that I was going to be able to do this, but just wanted to show what other municipalities they also are dealing with this issue, and what their plan was. And Baltimore has put together a whole education program, and then they are sending the volunteers out with the mission and the knowledge. So it wasn't a one and done event. It was going to be an ongoing effort.
It
It's
sounds
amazing.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. And I was going to say, given the scope of what even just Cherry Lawn, I mean, we have obviously more parks and beaches. You're only going to be able to hit maybe one of the areas that you've designated, maybe half of another one. And I think some of that stuff can be, I mean, I took a bunch of girls to do a small garden at Tilly. It's just having someone there that knows what should go and what should stay. And I wonder if there's some thought, maybe one of us on the committee can go about looking for resources, maybe an easy ID, like laminated thing that would say, these are the 10 things we want you to pull. I'm just, just things off the top of my head. I'm not a master gardener. I'm just an enthusiast. But
Well,
maybe
I think, if we could follow what the pollinator pathway is doing, and they have these, they have one coming up on Saturday where we're all getting together. We're going to be pulling invasives, and you've got people there who know invasives. Basically you just be taught on site, and once you pull about 24, invasives, you know what it is and you know what it looks like. So I think that having an expert or someone who knows invasives is really all you kind of need in a way, as long as the people are there backing you up and ready to work.
Right. Do you think that that's something we can organize within this group to tackle the areas that we're thinking about? I mean, I know the project they're doing on Saturday is specific to an area by the Darien Nature Center. And I know they're going to do removal, and then right afterwards, they're going to put plants. They're going to put in the natives and everything else, and they're going to maintain that area. For us, you know, do you think that's something that we can do with this group, or create a subgroup that would be willing to help us with it?
Well, I think we have to do, as Chris said and Joanne said, we have to have a plan. So I think I can absolutely marshal people to do the area behind Mary Louise's Gardens, which is what I'm calling it these days, the gardens at Cherry Lawn. But we need professionals to do Area A, and that's our target to start with, because there's so many vines, as Chris talked about, so many vines that are choking our trees. We can't get volunteers to do that. We need Charles from Stony Brook or whoever Pam recommends to come in and start that process down by the pond.
Okay, Pam.
So I also think that, Laura, thank you so much for that article. I think it was great. I'm going to send it to the this committee, just because it is super important to see that other cities and towns are in having the same problems. But I do think it's a great newspaper article or social media. I think we should get Marley on this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that could be very helpful to form a small army, if you will, of people that are, want to battle this. I think if we can get some teeth around it, it wouldn't be just these 7 people on the screen.
Yeah, like
No, the Nature Center folks I talked to right after this meeting, and they told me that they'd be happy to help via resources. We could use their email blast. They will help advise. I mean, they're wonderful. So they'll be a part of it. I mean, Cherry Lawn is their baby too. So.
Right. So I just think between Park and Rec, between Marley, our social media expert now, and the newsletter that goes out to the town, I think we can get some traction here.
Can I ask about that area behind Mary Louise's garden? You're saying that also needs a professional handle first?
No,
Okay.
no, that's what we can.
What I'm trying to say is that there's no reason to wait on that, because you could do the professional with Area A, which is all the vines, it sounds like. But Area C, there's no reason to start thinking about how to mobilize volunteers and get that going, because that's 2 separate areas, right?
Well, we can definitely mobilize, and we were kind of like Amy was ready. We were ready to jump in, but to Chris and Joanne's point, we need to map out what's there, because and Laura, I'm sorry, because if they're seeding, it's not like we have to have our master gardeners tell us the best time to do it. Otherwise, we're just spreading the seedings everywhere. So we can move forward if it's the right time, but we need somebody to map that small area behind the gardens.
Yeah, do you have something? It sounds like you're ready. Joe, did you have a comment on the mapping of that area?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I think the last time we were there, it was a little too early to see. Laura, do you agree with this? It was like we were looking, nothing had really butt out by then. We might need to go there once more just to see what we're dealing with.
Okay. I know that, just from walking around, there's tons of poison ivy and garlic mustard. That's the big thing. And obviously Japanese knotweed, if that's there, is obviously out now. So,
I think that it's really hard to ask people to be a warrior in the invasives when you're dealing with a lot of poison ivy. That's
you know what? I get systemic poison ivy, but I remove it. Yeah. And so it's just one of the, I think though, with poison ivy, you have to do it sooner the better, as soon as you could see it, because otherwise it gets so big and long, it grows pretty quickly, right? So I use that method personally. So I think, to be honest with you, we're at the point where the sooner we deal with some of these weeds, the better, because there's less of it. You know, the volume is far lighter. I mean, I feel like later in the season, everything grows and, you know, it becomes even harder. And then we have to wait till the next season because otherwise it's like a big mass and you can't get to it or something. But is there a strategy for on the committee who is going to be doing the mapping of the areas that need to be mapped?
I think Joanne was thrown under the bus on that, as I recall. If you're still interested in helping partially, and I can reach out to the Nature Center folks and maybe Julie and some others. You tell us, Joanne, you're the expert. If I could do it, I would do it. It's just not my gig. I'll do the work. I can't.
I think the area behind the vegetable garden would be easier to map than the other areas that I saw, which are they go way back. And I mean, I can tell you there's definitely porcelainberry growing back there and probably bittersweet for sure. But that's a little harder to map. I think I could do a small area maybe, but I'm not sure about those big areas that go way, way, way back. I mean, you're dealing with also ticks and, you know, stuff like that. So.
Yeah. Can we just do, like, if we can get volunteers to help with that area, that we can get people to come in and get to work on it like sooner, like if we get volunteers that are willing and have the comfort level to deal with potential poison ivy and things like that. I think that this, you know, if we can get a group together. Okay, go ahead, Laura. I see your hands up. Sorry.
I just wanted to say that, especially with garlic mustard, it's a biennial plant. So there'll be little seedlings of it, and that's this year's plant. And then last year's plant is the one that is flowering and seeding. So there really isn't a better time to pull garlic mustard because it's in two different stages at all times.
Right, but
So,
once it's dried, it tends to spread. Like as soon as you touch it, it gets really brittle. I mean, and so that's when you don't want to touch it when it's dried up, I would think, because
garlic mustard?
Making it and spreading it around then, I think. Right now it's still kind of flowering, almost just went to seed. So it's more intense.
But you do want to get this year's growth so that next year we're not faced with.
Right.
I think for garlic mustard right now is the best time. I mean, I've been pulling it all over my yard.
It comes up so easy with the rain.
Yeah, right now. I'll see you guys in 15 minutes. No, I'm kidding.
Exactly. So why don't we, if that's okay, I wouldn't mind going with you, Joanne, you know, because I wear my tall boots. I'll go with you if you need help to start looking at things.
Yeah.
I'll meet you, Joanne and Susan. I'm happy.
Excellent.
Why don't we do that? And that way we can, I just feel like we have a moment here, and I was going to say I could try to mobilize. My good thing is I could get volunteers from the Scouts because they have to do conservation hours, part of the reason we do these projects. So in order to, they need to do a certain number specifically related to conservation. So it's not like, you know, doing Feed My Starving Children. It has to be with a project in the outdoors. So I'm happy to get kids to help and move things if we need to.
I think
we've done poison ivy because some of the trails we have to do have poison ivy on it and it's messy. So we ask the kids to be safe and to know, it's part of their training is to identify it and, you know, maybe avoid it if they're not comfortable with it. So I just think we need to get started. I'm sorry, that's my personality. I don't like being in meetings too long for that reason. But anyway, so let's do that. Laura, Joanne, and I will go off. We'll go like do a field trip and go check it out between.
And I'll
now.
tag behind you. I'll just tag behind you and take notes.
This
and that'll
weekend,
work once you guys tell me what to do.
on Saturday, the Nature Center Pollinator Pathways and I'm going to be there. Laura, how are you doing? Are you moving about now?
I could walk about. Okay. I'm not bending down too often, but I can walk about.
We should do it early because it's going to be super hot on Saturday. So can we plan, maybe even if it's before the pollinator event, I'll get up early. It's just going to be really hot. I'm warn you, we're going to melt ourselves.
8 o'clock?
Huh? Yeah, I'll go 8 o'clock. Just text me. We'll do this offline. Whoever can come, maybe 8 o'clock at the Darien Nature Center area. but I'll email both of you, okay?
Okay.
In terms of,
Can
so
we
with
talk
the
about
vendors,
the
what?
vendor part?
Yeah, can we go back to the vendor? So how is that working? When is the money in place already for you guys to use it for this project? No, that's, when does it come?
July
July
1st.
1st.
So that's why it's like, oh, even if we Zoom, it doesn't matter. I mean, if we have a good plan, but we don't have the money in hand to have him.
Correct.
So
Now,
this is
the
why-
other issue, which hasn't really been resolved, is the maintenance piece. Was that discussed at all last night?
We didn't discuss it, but I brought up that I just came back from a park where they did a huge removal. And what they did is they went back with natives and they had to section the area off with fencing to get, so that the deer wouldn't eat all the native plants. Because for some reason, deer love native plants and they don't like those invasive non-native weeds. So, that's something to think about,
Well, no, I think what Chris mentioned when we did the initial walkthrough, the vendor, that he would start with section A, but in order to stay on top of it, it was going to require continual maintenance. And the issue of whether this was going to be a monthly charge, how many months was it going to go, and were we going to be able to cover it? That has not been resolved yet.
I see your point. Yeah. It sounds like the monies we have are going to be a one-time deal. I mean, it sounds like even just, right? Right now.
Well,
the
for this
year, and
yeah,
until next year, Mary Louise. So
that's correct. Yes.
so we don't have extra money out of that 8,000 to do maintenance. So that's part of the reason I was saying that nature is like a void, so you have to fill it with something that you want there, And you could put wood chips, you could do all these different things, but it's continuous work, as you just mentioned. And I don't think we have the budget in place and this year. I mean, going forward at this point.
Well, I think we can get some donations for filling the void, so to speak, of natives. I think there's a lot of people who'd be happy to, there's going to be people who can do the work physically, and then there's other people who are like, oh, I'll write a check, or I'll donate, or I'll go pick it up. Tell me what to buy, and I'll donate it. So
One of the
I
issues we came up with,
feel good about that at Cherry Lawn. There's so many people who are active in the community there.
So yeah, so the issue we had with the town hall, because I've been helping with the plantings at town hall, is first the deer came, so then we had to cage everything. So we had, my son built all those cages and we put them around every one of those bushes because we saw that deer started rubbing on all the bark. Then there was the process where we took the hose out and had to water everything, and that was a 400-foot hose, and you could see the plantings go across the parking lot into the driveway. And so not only do you have to, so when you do put things in, it takes, like, we're trying to set up a schedule for watering this summer for the plantings that were planted last year. And that takes a lot of time. And if you don't have time, it's money. So that's something to consider. Anyway.
Susan, with the trees that you planted at town hall, do you still need help watering those?
We're trying to get the scouts to help with that, and like we're trying to get each scout to adopt a tree and bring 1 or 2 gallons of water a week during the hot, hottest part of the summer.
I can help you with that because we ordered. They're called. I think it's, well, they have the word diaper in it.
I know diapers. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I have them though, and certainly we can utilize them out there too. The guys are now they're called tree diapers, and they're utilizing them at Highland for those plantings. But we had bought $5,000 worth of them, so just let me know. It's another conversation.
We can talk about that offline, and we might need them for Cherry Lawn if we put anything there too.
Right.
Nice if we had that chance. Those trees are all caged, so it's hard to get something around it and then to get back in and water them. I know they're all staked, they blow over. There's a lot of pieces to it, believe it or not. And that's there are 22 plantings there. 22. Yeah. So.
Well, if I can help, let me know.
Thank you so much, Pam. Okay, well,
The
Going
one thing I would say is that we don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul, so we want the plantings at Highland to continue to do well. So we're yanking from
Oh, I
one place
wouldn't-
to the other.
No, I wouldn't be taking it from there. We have leftovers.
extras. it sounds
Beautiful.
like. Okay. Okay, so it sounds like we have a plan to map the invasives. I guess at that point, Laura and I and Joanne, we could talk a little bit about the schedule of when the weeds come up and when is best to attack them. Maybe come back to the committee with that. Do you mind? We can work on that. We also, I mean, we just touched on the budget and next steps, right? About maintenance. That seems to be a huge challenge, Mary Louise, and I agree with you that, you know, as soon as our vendor comes in, it's gonna look great, but then you're right, it needs continuous, the way the great things, you know, especially with all this heat and water. I don't have an answer outside of, I mean, Patty alluded to, maybe we can get some private donations, maybe some help, you know, and kind of keep at it. I mean, because I would hate to see anything we pay for get, you know, destroyed or not maintained. I think that would be a priority for this committee, because otherwise, if we spend the 8,000 and then, you know, the Board of Finance or the Board of Selectmen see that it looks the same for whatever reason, because things grow back, we won't, I mean, I'm not sure how, well, they might say, wow, you need a lot more money to take care of that. Or they might say it was ineffective. Who knows? It could go either way, but it's something to consider for sure. But I think really activating volunteers and donors is a great idea, Patty. So I think, you know, let's try to work on that. But we can't start that process until we know how we can do it. And that's the mapping piece, right?
General Patton,
Yep.
Mr. Fillmore.
Right.
Chris Filmer did it. Look at how the parks look from, you know, all the Selleck's Woods looks, right? I'm sure that was a long process, right, Chris?
Very long process. I could show you areas that were completely covered by green briars. There's called smilax, just grows and covers everything.
Wow.
But I think it's actually interesting to hear you, because let's say a year ago, I don't think you would have known a tree of heaven from
Correct.
anything else. And
Correct.
so the first thing is to become aware of the problem. Otherwise, you're never going to get anywhere. So there's going to be lots of
Education.
times when you feel it's impossible, it's just too big. What can you do about it? But if you get into it, and I don't know if you've heard of a guy called Doug Tallamy, but
Yeah.
he's written books and he's spoken very well about the fact that, you know, there's a symbiotic relationship between insects and pollination. Insects do quite a lot of it, and there are birds that use insects as their only source of protein. So it's kind of good to have insects, but not too many. It's like most things. A little bit of heat warms you up and too much can kill you. So
Totally.
we're dealing with a balance here. And what has happened historically is that we've imported into this country invasive plants that have no history of being blended with the balance that is necessary, because it's, as I've just said, with insects, they're good and also bad. But if you've got invasives, particularly alien invasives, have no history at all, they will win every battle. So, as David Winston says, we're talking about the good guys and the bad guys. And we've got to help the good guys.
We
And
agree.
if we can identify them, first of all, now if you've got your bow and arrow and you don't know who the good guys and the bad guys are, how good are you? And you're all becoming aware of who the bad guys are, learning to identify them, and then help them. So don't be discouraged. It's just, and in order to identify them, you've got to know where they are. And that's why I've been so encouraging of understanding what the landscape is, getting town maps of understanding who owns what and what is available, and filling it up with where the rivers are. If you've ever heard, anyway, I'm going on a bit, but what I'm saying is don't give up, don't be discouraged, and keep learning. It gets more and more interesting the further you get down the line, particularly when you come to things like Japanese knotweed.
Yep.
Oh,
There
Japanese knotweed, which can just about take over. Nothing can beat it. It's called
You are-
Mexican bamboo.
you are so right. I chopped down, I think, over 100 yesterday. They are really bad news.
At your house?
Yes.
Oh,
correct.
wow. I
Yeah.
started years ago too.
And
Chris-
I'm only halfway through.
Chris, you're an
Yeah.
inspiration, just so you know. I think that knowing what you did at Celix particularly, we know it can be done with passionate volunteers. And I know that anybody that's ever worked with you feel that you're the best leader and you've really inspired all of us to your level. That's all we can aspire to be honest with you. So thank you very much for your time. We really, really appreciate it. And all the service that you've done for us, because we have.
That's sweet. Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
You'll see me in the background, sometimes in the foreground.
Okay, we'd love it.
Okay, guys. Thank you, Pam.
What do you have,
So
Pam?
can I ask next steps about the part where will be engaging with the vendor? I know we don't have the money until July 1st, but if everyone is everyone comfortable with Charles from Stony Brook? Did we want to talk to other people? I don't know what you think, Pam and crew.
He was very knowledgeable, and
Yeah.
and Pam has a history of working with him, and he's also affordable. So I
Yeah.
definitely think we should go ahead with
I
him.
can tell you that I've tried calling a couple of landscapers just to do stuff on my property. They are really thin on the ground now. I mean, there's so many people trying to get projects done because they're staying home more. So for the price, for the level of work we're talking about, it's super reasonable.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not gonna be able to beat this. And I think that he's just trying to, he sees this as a way to maybe create a relationship with the town, because we're going to have
Right.
more opportunities for invasive removal, hopefully. And if he does a good job, it's great. So just looking at the bid, I wouldn't spend too much more time. I think you're not going to get many more. That
No.
He's a great guy and he's great to work with.
sounds good.
So do we have to vote on hiring him, or do we wait? I mean, you are the contract, right? I know you were going to follow up, or Lori was going to follow up with you on the 1,760 monthly maintenance for several sections, or just that section A? And is it over several months, or does it have to be for 12 months?
I'll have to follow up with him on it. I have not done that yet.
Thank you. Thanks for following up. Okay.
So it sounds like the next step is definitely to get you guys some mapping, some more information about that location behind the garden, particularly, right? And also to see if we can get any more resources about some of the seasonality of the weeds that we're dealing with there. I mean, once we know what's there, then we'll kind of be able to bring back some research on when they come, when's the best time for removal, I guess, because we don't have any, besides people or labor, we don't have money to do anything anyway, right? What do you think? Okay.
At this point, that's correct.
Right. But I think I encourage everybody, if you guys have a chance to come on Saturday to see what they're doing with the Darien pollinator, because I think that's similar to what we're looking at. Maybe not, they might not have the vines or whatever, but there's a lot of invasives that they're going to be clearing out. So it kind of gives you a sense of like the type of work it is, and that it does require a lot of labor. And I know that Juliet, it's all about removing the roots, because you can't plant something in the ground if there are still roots, so that's something to think about. Anyway, it would be great to see that project in action. Is there anything else? I don't want to keep people. I know we started a little late because I was a little late. Is there any?
So just mentioning the next meeting is on June 16th.
June 16th.
And I will send out, and I want to know, Mary Louise, should I be sending information to you on your Gmail account only or the Darien account?
Send it to my Gmail.
Okay, because I think that's where the confusion is.
Yeah, okay.
And I still, Jimmy Ma, apparently even Nina, who sent me his email, that got kicked back too. So if anybody does know him, I don't know him, but.
Well, all right, yeah, he is working during the week, which that creates a problem for us
Okay.
on Thursdays.
Oh, okay.
But he wants to be involved.
Okay, well, it would be nice to send him the email
Yeah.
in the link. If someone can get a good
All right.
email, it'd be great.
Okay.
Okay.
I know Amy has his phone number. I'm pretty sure she's been in touch with him.
I've tried to call his phone number and left a message for him, never heard back. So I feel badly that it keeps getting kicked back. So I've been
Okay.
trying.
I will check that out.
Okay.
Sounds good. Okay, any other thoughts, comments before we adjourn?
So you are going over there Saturday at what time? 8 o'clock?
Yeah, we're gonna try to go earlier because the pollinator thing, I think that's at 8:39. I can't remember one of those. So we'll
All
get
right.
there.
Joanne, what time Joanne, what time are you called for duty over there?
I just signed up for it. I'm sure I could go anytime. So if we get there at 8, I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty informal, as I recall.
yeah, it is. And Deepika and Juliet will be there, so they're pretty good at mobilizing volunteers and giving them what to do. So we could probably mosey on there when we're done to help whatever we can. So let's plan on that. Anybody can join, of course, that's on this call. I mean, not at this meeting. The more the merrier, but it is going to be super hot on Saturday. So just be.
Well, I would recommend parking not by the nature center, since we're going to be going straight into the area by the cherry lawn, and parking where we parked last time on the upper dirt lot.
Yep.
That sounds good. Sounds like a good idea. Okay, so meet up there, you're saying, at 8 o'clock? Would that be good for everybody? And
Yep.
that way we have a place to meet and it's close to the area that we will be studying, for lack of a better way to put it.
Correct.
Perfect.
So can I ask you guys, so we're because Susan, this group has done this like 2 or 3 times already.
Right.
So I don't want to I'm mindful of making you do the same thing, but I think, Joanne, what you said was things are now flowering that weren't flowering.
Yes, and also, like, I guess we know what we're trying to do.
Then, like, if I bring things, if I bring different color ribbons, I mean, can you tell
I think
me
that's
how?
Honestly, for
Joanne?
me, what I find the best thing is just to take a picture of it. I personally, that's how I do everything. I take pictures of everything, and then that way I remember. And the other thing that I want people to do, I know for the plant group that I do it for Facebook, we do a plant ID app, and that's another way. If we say, hey, look for garlic mustard, they could, look for that, or they could make sure, oh, is this really garlic mustard? Let me take a picture, and then the app will tell them if it's really garlic mustard. So I just think ribbons and things like that, they tend to fly away, get lost. People don't really, it's just hard to affix to something like that. Unless it's a tree. Trees are easier, weeds are a little harder, personally, but we could go and look and decide. I mean, it's
You
not.
can always bring
So
some
we're gonna
ribbons.
photograph, and we're gonna create a map through our photographs, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we could.
Correct?
No, we could bring tape or some kind of ribbon or something to say this is the area that we're going to do, but I wouldn't map every. I mean, we're gonna run out of ribbon and or whatever markers really quick after we start if we do everything that needs to go, because it's a lot, I think, back there. I'm guessing, right? But anyway, let's go. But be prepared. I would wear long boots, long sleeves, long shirt. Just cover yourself up and bug spray everything if we decide to go deep, if we can, right? Would you say that, Joanne? I mean, between
It's not that, Susan, it's not that deep. You're talking maybe 6 feet deep.
Oh, the spot
Yeah, I'm
that
confused.
is 6 feet deep?
Are you talking about behind Sharon Lawn's not deep at all? The other area, was the priority in the last meeting, was A. So,
Well, I'm gonna be prepared just in case, because if you're a scout, you're always prepared. So that's all I'm gonna say.
I love it. I love it.
That way I can go big or go home. I'll, anyway. If
I'll
I'm getting,
suit up.
I'll suit up with you. Anyway, great. Well, this sounds great. I'm pretty motivated that we have an item we can kind of jump on, even if we don't have the money, for another, month and a half, it sounds like, right? But, at least with some action items going forward. And while we're there, we'll remove some invasives, I'm sure, as, we have to, because we can't look at them without removing them, Anyway, thank you guys so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I'm sorry I didn't mean to rush you guys. I'm a very strange meeting person, but I wanted to help Amy out with this meeting and see what we could do as a group quickly.
do we need to do that real quick? You want to just approve the minutes so Pam can post those from the last meeting?
Were there any changes to anybody or any additions, I should say, Mary Louise or anybody? I
No,
wasn't.
I think it's fine.
I wasn't there, so I can't speak to them, but they look great, Patty. They're very thorough and we appreciate it. So do we do a motion to approve the minutes?
I will move to
Okay,
approve
do we
the
need a
minutes.
second?
Yeah.
We need a second? Okay, Laura, let's say, all in favor?
Aye. Yeah.
Unanimous? Yep, okay, great. Okay, so that's approved. And then we're just gonna go to adjournment, okay? Thank you guys very much for your time. I'll see you guys Saturday, bright and early.
Okay.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye.
Nice
Bye-bye.
to see you all. Take care. Thank you.